call is now.
David, how's
Hey,
it
what's
going?
up, James?
Nothing much. Is right here. Just
It's
well,
going
waiting
good,
for your
man.
call.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I was looking forward to it. You had a good Thanksgiving?
Oh man, yeah. Hey, you know what? Thank you for asking. I actually I got a funny story that I want to share with you before before we start the interview.
Yep.
So you remember last
Yeah.
Wednesday when we the last time we spoke, I was telling you that I woke up kind of late. I think I woke up like 4 or 5 minutes before our interview was due to start,
I
and I asked my lady, I was like,
I
hey,
remember.
hey.
Yeah.
I asked my lady, hey, what time is it? And she's like, it's 7 o'clock. I'm like, oh no, like I got a call with David, and then so
Yeah.
so on Thursday when I woke up because I had to work on Thursday, I got up. I think I got up like at 7 a.m. and I woke up and I was like, hey babe,
Uh-huh.
hey wake up. It's 7 a.m. And you're late for work. And she woke up. She's like, wait, no. She was like, no, it's Sunday. I was like, no, it's Thursday. And then she like she gets out of bed. She's like, oh ish, she's running around. And then I was like, yeah, April Fools in November. It's actually Thursday and you don't work 2 days. So she went back to
Oh
bed, but she
crap.
wasn't too happy.
That's funny. Yeah, I was just saying, man. If I do that to my wife, it'll be funny, but I will pay for that. There'll be some retaliation.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for it. I'm
Yeah, that's
waiting.
funny.
It's not gonna stay just like that. Yeah, she'll
Yep.
be coming back for some more.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, that ain't over.
yeah,
you know.
it's gonna definitely
Um,
keep on going. But yeah, so how was your Thanksgiving? Did you guys get any like a special meal, or is it just another day in there?
nah, they give us a tray that's got it's got something that's supposed to be stuffing. It's pretty close. We got like some turkey that was, man, that turkey's no joke, man. It's like translucent. It's got like a pasty color to it. I don't advise it. And then yeah, there's like a piece of ham, which is cool. The ham was good. And then there was like a little bit of cranberry, like canned cranberry. And I think that's pretty much it. Really, there's something that's supposed to be like maybe pumpkin pie, but it's all grounded. It came in like an ice cream scoop. I
Yeah.
mean, it got to be thankful, man. It's better than nothing. And besides Marcelli, he's a pretty good prison chef, so he hooked up some burritos and stuff like that. So it
Uh,
was pretty good, man. I got my
that's
grub
good.
on it, and I got to see my girl on the day after. So she came over here, and we got our grub on out there in the visiting room. So that was
Nice.
like my real Thanksgiving treat. Yeah,
Eh,
it was
you,
good, man.
right now that you mentioned ham,
Yeah.
man, they used to give us this ham in East Lake and Silmar and in the camp
Uh huh.
system. Man, I used to hate that ham. It was
Yeah.
oh man, it was the worst thing ever. I remember I used to try to trade it. I used to try to trade that ham with the seaweed, and I used to try to get cookies
Yeah.
or whatever, But I couldn't mess with that ham.
Yeah. It's just, hey, I had to go at it. Marcelli gave me his, and I eat a lot, so I kind of went for it, and I changed my mind halfway through.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, I got rid of the rest of it. But yeah, it's what it is, man. It's the environment I live in. It's what we get.
Nice.
Yep.
Uh, so right now, so I put the stream that we're gonna go live at 4:30, and there was a gentleman that dropped in, goes by the name of Frank, and he said checking in from Oxnard 805, and then he said keep pushing
That's
forward,
right.
David. Your story can help change lives.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely, the message
Yeah.
is
I
definitely
appreciate
out there.
I appreciate that. And I thought about a lot about like what I talked about, and I felt kind of bad at kind of like trying to end the story at Calipatria because the story doesn't end there. It's just that the things that I got into, it's emotionally draining, man. It's like I remember one of the I think it was man, who was it? Maybe LA analyst. I don't remember one of the regular listeners was saying, man, that my story's heartbreaking, but it was self-inflicted, and I think that's the worst part about looking back, and I think about it, everything that happened, it could have been avoided. I was just so blind, and I was so stubborn, and I was just so set on trying to, carve my own way through madness, and I think about that, and it was, man, it was emotionally draining. And after I got off, because that was a lot of session, that was a lot of time we spent. That was hours, man. I think we went like 10 hours or so total. And it was a lot. It was a lot on me. So I'm glad that we had this little break so I can sit back and I can start reflecting and I can actually continue on the story because it's by no means over. You know, it's just taken a different trajectory. And now the things that I do today, they matter. You know, I am here in the service of my community, in the service of society in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's important to show where I came from and where I'm headed, and maybe I can transform lives, and I can show people that it's possible. And I have a guideline. I have a way that I did it. It wasn't it wasn't by accident. There was things that there was things that happened in my path and people that came to my path. I had outside support, and that's what helped get me to where I'm at today. It wasn't an accident, man. And I think that that's important because if somebody's listening and somebody's struggling, maybe that they can look for those things in their lives, whether they're in prison or not.
You know what? And one of the things I want to touch on is I think the biggest step, or one of the things that help you move forward is when you realize that that pretty much everybody that's in that type of situation that's currently incarcerated, that nobody put yourself there except yourself. And once you start realizing that and you stop blaming other people, it makes everything a lot easier,
Yes.
to move forward. Because I hear stories,
Yep.
where they blame, like if they got caught up, and they got caught up, like if they, like, let's say somebody hid in their neighbor's house, and then the cops was looking for them in their own pad, and then the neighbor tells them, hey, he's over here hiding in my pad. It wasn't the neighbor that put you
Yep.
in that situation. It was yourself. Or if somebody saw you committing a crime, and the cops didn't know where the weapon was hidden, or the drugs, or whatever. Ultimately, if you wouldn't have been doing those things, then nobody would have spoke up about the things that you were doing out on the street. So ultimately, everybody's responsible for their own actions.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why I say, like, I don't blame nobody, even for the fact that I'm in SNY, or that the reasons why I'm in prison. I'm 100% to blame for that. I made a decision to make those choices. That was all me right there. I chose to walk that path, and this is what happens. So when I was able to realize that, I was able to start changing my life. I was transforming. It was a lot easier, man. Blame
Yeah.
is real important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's one of the major factors right there, because I do hear people saying that they blame other people, but I just think, like, man, like the day that person wakes up and realizes that all of this, yeah. And I understand a lot of people, they have a hard life, growing up, and a lot of people have been through a lot of stuff. But at a certain point,
Yeah.
you just gotta be able to think for yourself, because I think that's what happens in when we get involved in these situations. We don't think for ourselves. We're just kind of like following along, and kind of going with the flow. And like right now, where
Yep.
you're at right now, you're in SAY, and you could, you don't have to do anything you don't want to, as far as, like, if you don't want to work out, then you don't have to work out. If you don't want to participate, in what's
Yeah.
going on in the yard, then you don't have to. That's totally up to you. Some people choose to participate
Exactly.
in those things on that side, and some people don't. So ultimately,
Yeah.
it's up to the individual. And a lot of people haven't woken up, and they haven't realized that they have a choice.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right, man. And that goes. It's going to tie into some of the things I'm going to talk about today. Everything that you mentioned right now, because that is very important. That we have a choice. You might not like the choice, but you definitely have a choice.
Yeah. You know what? Let me. I just
So
I just thought about a question I could ask you before you start. But prior to you, being incarcerated for your life crime, did you ever think about, like, the
uh-huh.
consequences of your actions, or were you just, like, pretty much like, whatever happens happens?
Yeah, I was living day by day, second by second, and I didn't consider the future. It was, and that's. I mean, in the back of my head, I always knew what it was because I came from prisons where dudes were washed up. But there's something in the back of my head that told me that, oh, that ain't gonna happen to you. Like, you do what you do. Like, them fools, they were on some other type stuff. Maybe there's more to the situation that you might have known, and you know, so that's what it was. You never really think you're going to get life until you hear the judge telling you. And, when I was sentenced to 42 to life, that was something to hear, man. That's like your worst nightmare. And you just don't think about that. you just think, it's just what it is.
And when you got sentenced to 42 to life, do you remember what was
Yeah,
your thoughts? What were your thoughts? And I'm assuming like in the county you were locked up, and they have like holding tanks once you're done
uh-huh,
with court, and there's a bunch of people waiting for
yeah,
the outcome of their cases, and everybody's talking about their cases. So I'm pretty sure when you came back, I'm not sure if you shared it with them or not, but it definitely changes the mood in those tanks. When somebody comes back and they're like, man, like pretty much you got washed up. With them giving you that sentence.
yeah,
And a lot, I'm pretty
yep,
sure, and
exactly.
I've been in tanks like that where people, have got those type of sentences, and man, it sucks. You hear them, like you hear about it, and like, damn, like this dude. When you would hear that back then, like 20 years ago, you knew this person wasn't gonna come home at all. They had a 0% chance of coming home.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, life
what
was
was your
life.
experience like?
Yep. Well, that's okay. So that's what I thought in my mind, because I only know that, coming into prison in the early 2000s and stuff like that. Life was life. There's been dudes that were down for 30 years, 40 years, and there's no getting out. And those guys were in for 7 to life, and so that's where my mind was at. So when I went out that day to get sentenced, I knew the sentencing was coming, and my attorney had something. We had like a last ditch effort to try to get my conviction thrown out because of a claim of jury misconduct. So there was a little bit of a validity to it, but we just didn't have enough to prove it, and the judge wasn't trying to give us an evidentiary hearing. So that was on my mind. Like when I walked out of the tank, okay, keep in mind this tank at that time, there was a lot of people fighting murder cases in that tank. We had like that back cell that I talked to the listeners about, to you about before, that they first had me move out of that back cell. Well, I ended up moving back there, and there's 8 beds in there, and every one of us was there for murder. We were all fighting murder cases. So we kind of we became like our own little entity back there. So when I came out to court that day, those guys, they were experiencing that with me, and some of those guys were fighting the death penalty. I don't know if did you speak to Carlos yet?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
The
I've
one
been
that's on
speaking to him. Yeah.
death row? Okay. So Carlos was there with me too. That's my boy. We go way back right there, and he was fighting death penalty, and he actually got condemned. So there was guys back there that were they still had hope and stuff like that. So when I went out that day, and I got sentenced, they could just tell when I got back. I came walking back in the tank. They all looked at me with them hopeful eyes, and I just shook my head, and I just instead of going into the day room, um, they didn't say nothing. They understood what it was. We had people in there with us before that we were tied with that got life already, and I had a cellie that got sentenced to death, so we kind of knew what it was. So what we did was we walked back, or I walked back into the back cell. Everybody left the cell empty, and I went back there, and they just figured that they're going to give me my time. And I went into the back cell, and I just sat on the bunk.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I like the tank got quiet. It's usually real loud in there, but everybody kind of just got quiet, and I could feel it. And I went in there and I laid on the bunk, and I had a bottom bunk, so I could see the bottom of the top bunk. And those bunks, they're just covered with tagging. They're just tagging everywhere. It's just madness, man. There's gangs, and there's always like a little cross right there, and there's just stuff that's written all over the bottom of the bunk, and I was just staring at it. And something like I was thinking, man, like I should be crying, I should be like I should be praying, but instead I just kept staring at that bunk. And I kept thinking of, like, I was staring at faces. Like I looked past the bunk and I started to picture everybody's faces. I started to picture my friends. I started to picture like um just girls, some girls like that were like friends of mine. I thought about my wife. I thought about, we weren't married at the time, but I thought about her. I thought about my mom. I thought about my siblings, and I just thought like, damn, I'm never going to be out there with them again. And then I started to look past, and I wasn't like emotional, but I was just kind of like, I was kind of detached, and that's all I kept doing. I was playing a reel in my head, and I was thinking, man, I'm never going to drive a car again. I'm never going to be able to like pet a dog. I'm never going to see the ocean again. And so
You have 60 seconds remaining.
yeah, things like that were crossing in my head, and I was just thinking like, damn, what have I done? Like it's too little, too late for all this. But I held it together. Yeah, I'll call back, James.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it's the 15-minute mark hit, and once GTL speaks and gives us the last 60 seconds, they automatically call those or cut off the call to 60 seconds. So he should be calling us back shortly, and then he'll go ahead and continue with the story. And for everybody that's tapping in or listening to the streams, really appreciate you guys setting part of your day, or an hour or whatever, to actually listen to the streams, and really appreciate it.
This call is
This
now
is
being
Global
recorded.
Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Yeah.
Hello,
So I was just. Yes.
you know
Sure.
what?
Yeah. So. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, okay. So we have somebody that just tapped in right now. We have Lifestyle Chronicles tapping in from Riverside County, and he put 100%.
Okay.
And then he wants to know what year did you catch your AW number in?
I picked it up in 2015. Yeah, I came to prison in 2015, and that's when I got my AW number. Yeah, I discharged. I had a P number, and I discharged my P number in 2009. And then I was in the county. I got arrested in 2010 September, and then I picked up my P number. I picked up my AW number in 2015. Yeah.
And right now, when you were speaking earlier on, you were speaking about or you brought up Carlos, which he was or
Yeah.
he is he was condemned to death.
Yeah. Carlos is condemned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was actually I was on with him on a live on Friday, and Eliceman actually pointed out that 10% of people that are on death row they actually come out of Riverside County. Do you know why that is? Why do they push the death penalty so much in Riverside County?
That's a good question, man. I know, like I said, I had a cellie. I had a cellie that was sentenced to death when he was my cellie. We were both fighting. I had gone pro per on my case for a little bit while I was in between attorneys. So my cellie, that they put me in these pro per cells. So my cellie, they had him in there with me, and he got sentenced to death. And he was an older guy, and I learned a little bit about death row, and especially from Carlos. And then I had another cellie that was fighting death also. And it's crazy because a lot of us there, man, we were going through our murder cases, and the situation and the circumstances weren't all that different, And I just tripped out how these guys were fighting death. These guys were fighting LWAT. And I want to say that Riverside County is probably a more conservative county. But I had heard that, man. I know a lot of people that were up there. And 2 of them are already dead. It's crazy because my cellie, the one that went up there, he's dead already too. Because I asked Carlos how he was doing up there, and he's like, "Hey man, that fool died of COVID," and it blew my mind because I was like, "Damn, no way!" He got sentenced to death. I was in there with him. They were supposed to move him out. When you get they find the jury finds that they're going to sentence you to death, right? They have to do the penalty phase. So it's the conviction and then the penalty phase to see if they're going to give you life without it and death. So when my cellie got death, he refused to go. He didn't want to go. Like, he started acting up in trial, so he refused to go out, and they kept coming for him every day. And then when they did the penalty phase to see if they were going to put him to death, he refused to go. He was like real defiant. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be a part of that charade." And I was just looking at him like, "Damn, I'd be out there begging for my life," But he didn't do it. He was real stubborn. And then one day the cop just came to him and was like, "Hey, they found you. I just want you to know they found you. They voted in favor of death for you." And he just looked at me. He's like, "Fuck," And I told him, "Yeah, you should have went out there and probably spoke for yours, And they left him in there with me for like 2 days, and he wasn't gonna, like, the cops usually they're supposed to move him out right away, and they're supposed to put him in the hole pending transfer because they take him straight to San Quentin. But they left him in there with me, and they knew that he wasn't gonna try nothing with me. I'm a pretty big boy, so I just tried to talk to him and try to give him just try to cheer him up a little bit, you know. And I remember him telling me, he goes, man, he goes, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in solitary confinement till they kill me. And that always stood out to me, you know. And I was thinking, damn, you know, that's pretty messed up, you know. And then the next, like, about, they left him in there probably like a day or two, and then they came and picked him up and took him straight to San Quentin. Down. Yeah, the same happened with Carlos.
Yeah, yeah. And then
So
lifestyle.
crazy to it was so.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Lifestyles
No, it was so
Chronicles.
crazy to see.
Nah,
Uh huh.
you go this
I'm
time.
listening. No, it's so crazy though. It's like, okay, look, when I seen Carlos here, it was like looking at a ghost. Like, Carlos is my boy. This dude right here, he was one of my bunkies. He was somebody that I worked out with, somebody that I went to yard with. Like, this is my friend right here. Like, this is my boy right here. I'm telling you. And I had this in the back of my head when they sent Carlos to death row. I was so sad for him, you know. Like, it was just something that, like, I thought, like, fuck, man, you know. Like, I always had that in the back of my head. My old cellie that went up to death row, the one that died of COVID, he wasn't as close to me as Carlos was. Like,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
and we had talks. Me and Carlos had talks about it, you know. And he asked me one day that they offered him life without parole, and, you know, he asked me should he take it, and it was one of those things that I just told him, man, I would never take something like that, you know. But so I always had it in the back of my head, like, damn, I hope I didn't talk him into going to trial, because then he got death row. So I had somebody look him up, and I seen his San Quentin. You know, if you see on death row on the San Quentin website, they show everybody that's condemned on there. And I had somebody flip through, and I eventually found Carlos's picture, and when I seen him, I felt so bad for him. You know, he just looked scared. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen his death row picture, but just if you know him and you seen that picture, you think, damn, this fool's fucking, man, he's like fish out of water over there, you know. And I always had that in the back of my head. So when I got here to Centinela, he came up here to check on Jesse. He didn't know I was here. I just kind of slipped in, you know. And he came to the door and he knocked, and I looked, and he looked at me, and he was just like, what the fuck are you doing here? I said, what are you doing here? You know, and I found out about that pilot program where they're letting the condemned come out here, you know. Yeah, it was crazy. Blew my mind.
And you know what? And I want to touch on something that you just said right now, because you said it, and I don't think you've mentioned it before, or if you did, it completely went over my head. You said that your one of your old cellies passed away due to COVID.
Yeah, yeah, he did. And the only I guess he went up when he got sentenced. He went up to death row, and I asked Carlos right away, "How's he doing?" You know, he said, "Oh, that fool died of COVID." And he wasn't up in death row long. He got sentenced. Man, I probably maybe 2012. So yeah, he didn't last long up there. COVID was 2020, so he probably did like 8 9 years up there. Done. Yep.
And then and Lifestyles
Yeah.
Chronicles put also Riverside has some of the strictest third strike and enhancement laws. I wasn't aware of that. I actually thought LA was one of those places that was pretty strict. But then I guess when you look at the whole picture of the whole state of California, it tended to be
Mhm.
one of those Superior Court was one of those places that would definitely show you some love. Opposed to other
Yeah.
parts of LA County or just in general the state of California.
Yep. The crazy part, yeah, I have a 25 to life enhancement. I technically have two life sentences. You know, I have the 15 to life plus the 25 to life. So that second 25 to life enhancement, I'm going to court on that enhancement. I'm going on a hearing for it because I qualified for a law on, I think, May 13th or around there, right? I got a hearing on that, and if this was LA County, that enhancement will be coming off, and I'd be going to board in 2 years. But Riverside County, it's unlikely. Yeah, they leave things the way they are.
Yeah, so
So
they're
we'll
still
see though.
pushing. They're still pushing the same the same type of laws that were pushing 20 years
Yep,
ago, right? And
same thing.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah, man. All right. So I know
yep,
when we spoke earlier on, there was a few things that you wanted to touch on. So if you want to go ahead and take over the
uh-huh.
mic now, then I'll go ahead and hand it off to you, and then as we go through the or as you speak, and if I think of anything when the calls disconnect, then I'll go ahead and ask you your questions.
Yeah, ask me questions, man. If I miss something, ask me questions. That's why I'm here. I'm here to.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
All right, and then right now before you
I'm
get
here to shed
started,
some light. Yep, I'm here.
we actually have Fish Slayer SoCal that just dropped in, and he's sending his saludos to both of us. So hey, thank you, really appreciate it, and hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving.
Yep. Hey, likewise, man. Fish Slayer, man. SoCal. That's the boy right there. Don't know who he is, but I like his style, man. It's cool, man. It's very positive. All right,
And
so
and hold on, one more, because they keep on sneaking in these messages on me
nah,
here.
we're good.
Uh, so
Nah, don't trip.
Lifestyles Chronicles put the Riverside District Attorney likes
Hmm.
to throw away the keys and wash you up.
Yeah, that's a true statement. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's a true statement right there. So yeah, so anyway, last time I left off, we left off in Calipatria, and I spoke before on what it was like to get there and come straight out of the gang, and I had been jumped on into HB, and so I had spoke about the fear of not knowing who's going to be on the bus, and the crazy part about that, right, is that I know that I was at a crossroads, all right, when I got there. I want to do good, but I don't know what doing good looks like. The only thing that I had to go off of, the only guideline that I had to go off of was, there's the Christian car in prison, but that wasn't my thing, like I never, like that's not my thing. I don't want to get into religious discussion and stuff like that because I don't want to alienate anybody from different religions and stuff, but that wasn't my thing. So when I got there, I didn't want to deal with them, and I was thinking like, man, like what is it? So I had to go and try to find people that they had the appearance, of doing good, and I didn't know. But you don't really know for sure. You don't really know what they're up to because the culture in prison. I had to ask myself, what is the culture in prison? What is the norm of prison? Drugs, violence, gangs, manipulation. That's the culture in prison. So when you're dealing with somebody, they look good on paper, they look good, when you see them, but when they get back into the cell, those are the guys that are putting needles in their arms, those are the guys that are using cell phones, those are the guys that are, they might be moving a paper, what we call it paper, which is just a little bit of drugs, and so you don't really know, who you're dealing with. So, and then the problem is that you don't want to get at your homeboys because you don't have homeboys no more. If you want to change, you can't lock on to the word homeboy anymore. That's out. You can have friendships, but the word homeboy, what is that term? I had to evaluate that term also. Homeboy to me is an obligation. That's somebody that I click up with this person because he's my quote unquote homeboy, and I'm obligated to this dude. If something happens with this dude, then the term homeboy means that I gotta jump for this dude. I gotta get into a 2-on-1 or 2-on-2, and I'm not trying to do all that. So, I became a like kind of isolated. I stayed at the handball court. And I tried to deal with some of the dudes that were right there on the handball court, and just that was pretty much my program. Go to yard, play handball the whole yard, go back in, just kind of stay off to myself. But what was different in Telepat is that they have facilitators. Okay, I had never really seen a facilitator in prison before. The prison that I had come from, that's not the norm. That's not the culture in prison. It's a facilitator, a mentor. You got these dudes that were running the groups on the main line and stuff like that, but nobody took that seriously. I sat there. If I was assigned to something like that, I was trying to get out of there, or that's where we would go score drugs and stuff like that, like at NA and things like that. So I wasn't trying to. When I seen a facilitator, I was like, okay, well that dude's a manipulator. That dude's somebody who's probably using that position to move shit on the yard and stuff like that. So I had to sit back and I had to like watch these dudes, and I started seeing, okay, well these guys, they have a little bit of a following here, but these guys they don't look like that normal facilitator look. The guys who would run these programs, these programmers in the other prisons, these guys, they look like me. These guys are tattooed up. These dudes got reputations. These dudes got we all talk about their aliases and their monikers and stuff like that, but they're not going by that. They're going by their first names. And I was still going by my alias. Yeah, I'm there, I'm fresh and stuff like that, but people knew me. So people wanted to go up and they wanted to call me by my alias. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it like, damn, like these dudes are just being regular dudes, but they kind of got like, you can tell they got some scuffs on them. They're a little rough around the edges. They don't talk like the normal facilitators and preachers that you hear in prison. So I went over and I started to gravitate towards these dudes, And the first program that when I met a good facilitator, it was from the Partnership for Reentry program. That's called PrEP. PrEP is out of the Archdiocese in Los Angeles. It's a Catholic organization but they give these modules, and the modules they have ones on anger management, gang awareness and recovery, domestic violence, victims awareness. So those are the main ones that were around at that time. So being an ex-gang member, I went up to the facilitator and I was
You have 60 seconds remaining.
so let me get one of these gang awareness and recovery modules. They have questions on there. So I started to go back in the cell and I started to do it. And yeah, it's gonna cut us off, James. So I'll call back right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we went ahead and hit that 15-minute mark again, and so he should be calling us back shortly. And I just saw a message come in from Randy Ruiz. What up? Love you always. Okay, so I'm assuming you're probably a family member of David. As soon as he comes in, then I'll go ahead and let him know that you tapped in and you dropped a message for him. And it shouldn't be much longer before he um he should be calling back in the next few moments and whatnot. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody for tuning in and there we go.
Yes?
All right, David.
Yeah.
All right, it's all you.
So history. When I first got that piece of paper, that chrono that showed that I had completed gang awareness and recovery, man, I was showing it to everybody that would look. Man, I was like, look, I did it. I'm doing good. I'm a programmer. But at the end of the day, I was dealing with a lot of stuff, man. I was still dealing with a lot of demons, man. And so it didn't really have too much of an impact at gang awareness and recovery. Sad to say, that first module was just getting my feet wet. The second one, though, that's when it started to have cracks, man. I did victims awareness. Now, victims awareness was the first time that I had ever acknowledged my crime, as far as me being solely responsible for that crime. It's the first time that I ever mentioned my victim's name. I had just been calling him my victim, but I had never mentioned his name, his first, middle, and last name, his mom's name. I started writing a letter. I had to write a letter to him, and that was a deep thing right there, because I had to write a letter to a person that I had killed. So when I did that, something started to change in me, man. Something like where the words just poured out, and I felt like I had a lot to say. That letter that I wrote was like 2 pages, and I basically just poured my heart out to this person, who's no longer here. And I started like I was so sorry, about what I did to him, and I was surprised at that, because I had been this tough guy, and I had been this, convicted killer, so I had a certain image to uphold, but inside I was struggling, with these decisions. So when I wrote that later, man, I apologized from the bottom of my heart, and I just kept writing and writing and writing, and then I started to think about his son, and I wrote it in the letter, and everything that I was supposed to have not paid attention to during trial, everything that was tied into the pain that I had caused, I had tried to block out. I was only thinking about what I had lost. Remember, when I'm laying in that bed and I'm looking up, and I'm thinking about, I can't go to the beach no more. I can't drive a car. I'm not going to pet a dog. Well, what about this individual? He's done. What I did to him was final. He's never going to have any of these things either. But he's never going to be able to be in love again. He's never going to be able to talk to his mom again. And at that time it was all about me. I remember my sister, she had said something while I was in county, and she was like trying to look in the bright side, that we still have you. And I remember telling her, well, I'm nothing but a fucking grave. That's all I am. I'm a grave. I'm just as much a grave as as the real grave, but instead you could come to visit me, and I'm just going to talk back to you, but I'm basically just a tombstone, and that was a real selfish and real fucked up thing to say to her. I don't know if she remembers that or not, but it always stuck out in my head like, damn, like it was all about me. Well, this individual, he is in a grave, he is in the ground, he doesn't got none of these things, and he's never going to have a future again because of my selfish decisions, because of my defective thinking. So that came out in that paper, man. And so when I was done with the victims awareness, I wanted to do other ones. I wanted to do anger management because I was upset. People would get me so upset in Calipatria that I wanted to physically harm them. I did. I held back. I got self-control, but I did. It wasn't, that anger hadn't disappeared just because I had been got over there. They didn't do was jumped on me, and I went to Calipatria. That's not going to change the fact that I'm a violent person. I had to look within myself, and I had to start to uncover the reasons why I was behaving like this. Why when somebody would piss me off, I'm not thinking about walking away. I'm thinking about laying them out. I'm picturing a whole scene in my head, and I'm starting to obsess on it. So I had to think, okay, well, what the hell is going on with me? So I had to do anger management. So I did that one. But there was still something missing in my life, and I found that with Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous, which is CGA. I did NAAA. That's cool. I was working those steps, but Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous, that's what these dudes were preaching on this yard in Calipatria. These are the dudes that were rough around the edges. These are the dudes that were real deep in CGA, and I'm not going to get into all the steps on this call, but there was two that stood out to me. For one, step one, we reviewed our past, admitting a lack of strength and control over our addiction to all forms of illegal activity, and that our lifestyle was not decent nor manageable. That step right there, it gave me an acknowledgement, man. I had no strength and no control over my addictions to violence, to using drugs, to illegal activity. That's what made me want to come to a yard and see who's got this and that, try to find the homeboys. That's illegal activity right there. That's against the rules. So my lifestyle was not decent nor manageable. I have killed. I have injected drugs. I have smoked. I've drank. I've womanized. I was not decent nor manageable. Only my filthy matters. And that's what I had to deal with and what I had to face. So I had to come across, and I had to forgive myself. I had to ask myself, well, what is forgiveness? I can't worry about other people forgiving me at this time. All I have to do is I have to push forward, and I have to forgive myself for the things that I've done, because this guilt and this shame is what's driving my addiction. So the second one.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It says, we became willing to believe that change is possible by learning a different way of living through suggestions from those who have trudged the path of recovery before us out of insanity. Those who have trudged the path to recovery, these were the people that they weren't your standard facilitators. These were the dudes that had tattoos all over their face. These are the dudes that had track marks down their arms. These were the dudes that were, they had a bald head still. They still had that little look to them, but they were, the words that were coming out of their mouth, I can identify with. These dudes were living a clean life in good, orderly direction. These dudes were not using drugs. These dudes were not committing violence. These dudes were still respected on the yard. They were not going by their alias. They had taken off that mask, and they were going by their first names, the name that their mom gave them, and so, they admitted, like, hey, man, like, we were coming out of insanity, so when I had to believe that change was possible. That's why those first two steps were so important for me, because I based my foundation of my entire recovery was based on those steps right there. Okay, for one, I'm out of control. Two, I need to believe that I can regain control of my life, and I can learn from these guys who have done it before me. I'm not reinventing the wheel. These guys have already done it. They're being productive, man. They're going to college. These guys got degrees, man. These guys are doing what they got to do. They respect all staff, and that was another thing that I had to accept. The CDCR staff, they're not my enemy. Anybody in green is not my enemy. Just because they're working in law enforcement and they're officers and whatnot, I'm the problem. These guys they're here to try to keep the public safe. They're here to try to keep other inmates safe from me. Yeah, there's some bad apples. I'll give you that. But these guys are not the enemy. I have to stop looking at us against them mentality. It's not like that. I shouldn't have to deal with people like that. I shouldn't have to deal with the officers unless they're just going about their business within their duties. But I don't have to deal with these officers if I'm not kicking up dust in prison. Period. Yeah, they opened the doors, and I had to submit to their authority. I refused to do that throughout the years. So these are things that I learned from these guys because I've seen that, hey, they're talking to the officers. They don't care if people are thinking that they're snitches. They're not doing that. They're not involved with nothing, but they don't care what people think. They're defying the culture in prison. They're saying no to drugs. They're saying no to violence. They're saying no to gangs. And they're happy. I started to see joy on their face, and I wanted it. But I wanted to half step. I still thought, okay, well, I can smoke weed. I could drink, even though I'm not going to do the hard shit. But I can do all this. But that's not how it works, because those things were keeping me tied into a criminal mentality. If I wanted to change the criminal mentality, that I had to say no to everything. And it's hard, man, because I had mentioned before about being the machine in motion, the term that I had heard from the Northerners. And the machine of motion is basically saying that I'm a part of what goes on in prison, which means that if I'm passing by and going down the tier, and somebody calls me and they slide out an envelope under the door and they're like, hey, do me a favor, can you drop this off a couple cells down? You're on your way. I'm not asking questions.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I'm going to look up, see where the officers are at, and then I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to do it all fluid so I don't draw attention to myself. But now, in my recovery, I say no. I ask them, hey, if it's a soup or something under the door, if it's a CD, I can see it. But if it's an envelope, I'm going to ask them, hey, what's in that? What do you got in there? I don't pass hot shit. That's what we call it. Something that's illegal, we call it hot. So I don't pass phones. I don't pass syringes. I don't pass drugs. I don't pass weed. I'm not going to do none of that. And that's scary because these dudes, they're not trying to hear all that. So recovery in prison, I've learned that it's dangerous. Am I willing to trust the officers to keep me safe? Hey, that's a work in progress. I want to say, hey, if I tell this guy no, and as soon as the door's open, he's going to come after me, and because he wants to get his shit going, I'm delaying his progress, and I'm telling this dude no, and he's going to feel some type of way. He's not on the path that I'm on. Do I trust the officers to keep me safe? Hey, absolutely not. But I don't, I have to trust the process, but I also have to make sure that when I tell the person no, I have to do it gracefully, and I have to make sure that people know what my walk is. People know that I'm doing good, so they're not gonna ask me those questions. They're not gonna see me on a yard half stepping. So yeah, it's a dangerous thing, man. It's a scary thing.
Hey, David.
So,
right now that you took a pause right now, I'm just going to take this opportunity right now to let you know that Randy Ruiz is tapping in. He put what up, love you always, and then he also put that's my brother since we were kids. Also, we have Kevin Reyes, tell my primo I love him.
Yep.
And then just want to go ahead and let you know that fish Slayer. SoCal, he dropped another 20 right now on the chat. So I'm a shoot. I already did. I already sent it over. I actually sent it over to Jesse. So like that, you don't get hit with with whatever percentage they take for the restitution. So that should be hitting Jesse's books in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Thank you very much again, man. Everything that he does, it helps. It matters, man. It helps me out a lot, man, and I really appreciate that to Fish Slayer, man. My cousin, my primo, right there. He knows, man. That's my boy right there, man. I love that fool. Randy, that's a whole that's like my brother right there. He's one of my best friends. And I trip out that he was one person that he was locked up. When I caught my murder case, he was locked up, and I think about a letter that he wrote me, and he just, it sounded like, man, when he wrote me that letter, and he just told me, like, man, if I was out, you would have never had to do that. You would have never been in this situation. It almost felt like, it sounded like he felt guilty for dealing with his own shit and being locked up because of what happened with my life, and yeah, that's my boy right there, and I love that fool, and I'm real surprised that he's listening because I ain't talked to that fool in a while, but yeah, that's my boy right there. Yeah, so yeah, it's just okay. So that's the scary part, though. What I had talked about before, right? Okay, so The listeners might not understand unless they have been in the system. If they've been in the system, they'll know, man. Like, it's not normal for us to say no to these things in prison. It's not normal to not pass something for somebody. It's not normal to not get high. When people ask me, when they're, when somebody comes around and they pull out,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
hey, I walk away, I'm gone, and they kind of look at me all crazy, and it's just, I don't care what they think. My life is going to be lived in good, orderly direction. Now, if they want to do that, that's their business. I'll touch more to that in a second. I'm gonna call back, right, James?
All right, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Yep.
And for anybody that that wants to send over any funds, last time I spoke about it, I said I was gonna make a video. Unfortunately, I still haven't got around to it. I did make a video on if you want to reach out to this gentleman on where to download the app, what app to use, and how to kind of set it up. I mean, that's the GTL Getting Out app, and that allows you either to send them messages, video chat, cards, videos. It's a wide variety of communication tools that they offer. So I did make a video on that. It's a few videos back. If you if you scroll through the history, you'll find it. But I know some people are interested in blessing these gentlemen with some cash. So I'm definitely gonna make a video step by step on how to set up that GTL connected app. And he's calling back.
This call is now being
This is
recorded.
Tools, and they call them transforming powers, right? And I got really into that program. And there was one though that always stood out to me because I felt different, man. I felt like maybe I'm fucking up, maybe I'm messing up. Like am I trying to be Mother Teresa in here or something like that? Like I didn't know what recovery looked like. I had mentioned that before. So there was one of the guides to transforming power. It was number 10, right? It said, work towards new ways of overcoming injustice. When necessary, be willing to suffer suspicion, hostility, rejection, and even persecution. And that right there. I started thinking about it, man. I was like, damn, okay, well, if I'm not doing what they're doing, there's a suspicion cast on me. Okay, well, I must be telling then. I must be a square. I must be a programmer. I'm anything but David, just a regular dude just trying to get by and do my time, right? There's something that's got to be there, right? There's hostility. When I tell somebody no, they're looking at me all crazy, and me, what I've been taught in my time in prison is that if somebody gets crazy with me, I got to get off on them. You got to nip that in the butt right away, and then people will start to know. But when that's no longer an option, there's hostility right there, and then there's rejection. Because when I go to the handball court and there's dudes over there that are kind of doing what they got to do and stuff like that, they're doing some illegal shit right there. They all leave when I go over there, and I felt rejected by that. Like, damn, I'm not involved with that. I'm not.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It's none of my business what they're doing, but I felt rejected by that. And a part of me was like, damn, man, I'm gonna have to get at these fools, be like, hey, they don't know who they're fucking with and whatnot, where I came from. But at the end of the day, none of that matters, because if I'm living my life in good, orderly direction, it doesn't matter what they think. Who are these people to begin with? They're just passing through, lost souls, just like I was. So I have to understand that, and I have to look at them with compassion. So that was a big thing. So I got into AVP, And I became a facilitator eventually, and it became a program that I actually my recovery depends a lot on my guys to transforming power, conflict resolution tools. I teamed that up with Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous, and I was able to move forward, and become a better person. Got into college, started doing good. I'm majoring in psychology. I'm also going to get degrees in sociology and behavioral sciences because I want to work and be a counselor. But it's still a dangerous place. I'm on the yard, I'm playing handball, and there's an argument over the handball games, and next thing you know, there's a 2-on-2, and their homeboys run up, and I'm just sitting there like, damn, I'm looking at a riot, and I forget I'm in prison still. I got to be careful. I got to be on my P's and Q's. I remember I had one of my cellies is an ex-lifer. Well, he's out there now, but I was thinking about it when he was he just been found suitable for parole, and we're in the cell, and some dude had got his cellie real good, man, real good. Like he got him good. He whacked him with something, got him over the head, tried to stab him in the head, and so they brought the guy out and they put him on the benches right in front of me, and we could see the blood. It's just dripping down this dude's whole body's covered with blood, but it's flowing. Like you can tell when something's flowing like that, and I remember I looked at my cellie and he looked at me and he's just like, man, I got to get the fuck out of here. I can't see this no more, and that's a common occurrence in here, Yesterday, I was right there and I saw 2 fights yesterday on this yard, but I'll get into that later, But it's a very violent environment, but I feel like more has to be done. What we started doing in Calipatria was when there was new arrivals, when I became a facilitator, we created a little team. And what we would do when the new arrivals would come, we set it up in every building, and they're coming from the main line or they're coming from other prisons, and the first thing that they do is they want to find their homeboys. I mentioned that before. They come to the yard, they start looking to see who's clicked up where, they look for tattoos, but we would try to get to them first before their homeboys. So as soon as they got there, the cops would pop our door because they already knew what we were doing, and we would go to the cell, and we would introduce ourselves. We would talk about the programs, and we would help them fill out. They're called 2016 forms, which is it's a request to get self-help groups, and we would help them fill out those 2016 forms and put them in. And we win some, we lose some. Eventually their homeboys will come across, but we talk to them. We just told them about SNY, that they don't have to go and repeat some of the same mistakes that they did on the main line. They don't have to repeat some of the same mistakes they even did on other SNY yards. They can start fresh here, and we're willing to help them. We're in service of our community, So I said we win some, we lose some. So another thing that I had to do in Calipatria was I had to mind my own damn business, because a part of me in the back of my head still had reservations. Like thinking, okay, well, it's good to know who's hitting. It's good, like who's bringing in drugs. It's good to know who has a phone. It's good to know who has this, who has that. Because if this recovery thing don't work out for me, I need to know where I can go pick up some shit, and I need to know where I can do it fast. So in the back of my head, I was still kind of like, that's what we call reservations. And I started to because I knew those people, when I started to get farther along in my recovery, and I eliminated the, obtaining those things from them. I wasn't going to hit this dude up for a phone. I wasn't going to hit this dude up for drugs. That was out. But I started to resent them. I started to resent them for bringing those types of that kind of bullshit to the yard, because there's always stuff that surrounds that. One cell phone will probably go around to 4 or 5 people, 6 people, and then eventually someone's going to try to make a play on it. Someone's going to leave. It's going to cause problems, and boom, there's a little riot on the tier. Dudes are coming out on drugs, and they're dangerous, man. They're coming out of the cells, coming down, and they're real aggressive. They're looking at us like we're crazy, and I started to hold resentment for these people, and I started to pass judgment on them. Like, damn, this is just this dude's he's a freaking weirdo and whatnot. So yeah, I had to learn how to just mind my own business, put my blinders on, and worry about what I was doing. So years passed in Calipatria. I was there for 6 years. I was in college for the spring semester of, it was 2023. Yeah, I was in the spring semester of 2023. And the problem with SNY is that there's a lot of people that drop kites over here. They would do it over there in other yards, the mainline yards and stuff like that. But SNY, it seems like for whatever reason, dudes like to drop kites. And I know a few people that, their cells got run up on, and they said, oh, this guy dropped a kite on you because said you had a phone in your cell. And, the cops all knew it was bullshit, but we could never figure out who was doing it. We always suspected, but it had never happened to me, so I wasn't tripping. So on 4/10/2023, it happened to me. I'm sitting in my cell. I had worked that whole day, and I'm just chilling in there. And I was a clerk in the education department, and I had a buddy that was a clerk at the chapel, and we were pretty tight. We were both facilitators, and we had positions on the yard though. We had those good. That was two of the best jobs on the yard. The education clerk and the chapel clerk were two of the best jobs. Plus, we were program coordinators for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. They had a CGA program on the yard, so we had access to all the buildings, and we were the ones that screened out chronos. And if guys didn't attend the groups, we wouldn't give them chronos and stuff like that. So a lot of people didn't like us. A lot of people wanted our jobs, and that's the only thing I could think of, So 4/10/2023, ISU received anonymous information that me and the chapel clerk, that we were going to make a move on staff, and which is bullshit. Everybody that knew us knew that was bullshit. We had been clean for so long, and I was in college, so I seen them, the officers. We all know when they're coming in to get somebody. So I seen them walk up the stairs, and they went for the chapel clerk, and I thought, damn, that's weird. Like, why are they opening his trace line, cuffing him up? So then I seen more officers coming down the tier, and they walked over to my cell, popped the trace lot, and cuffed me up, and took me to the program office. And I'm confused. I'm like, damn, what the hell happened? I don't know. I don't understand what's going on. And they're saying, well, they received anonymous information that said that we were going to move on staff. So I'm laughing in my head. I'm thinking, damn, this is crazy. This ain't going to go nowhere. They're probably going to search my cell. Well, I get a 114, which is a lockup order, and I'm going to the hole. So all these years that I've done good, all these years that I've stayed out of trouble, all these years that, I've attended college and I've worked to improve my life, suddenly I'm back where I started. I'm being escorted to the hole. And this is this year. This is April of 2023. So I get to the hole, and I'm sitting in the cage. Everything looks different now. I haven't been in ASU in a long time. It's the administrative segregation unit. So I'm sitting there in this cage, and I'm just mind blown. I can't believe that this is happening. It's almost like my whole life went full circle. So they come and they're talking to me if they're asking me questions about my mental health, and they want to know if I want to hurt myself or whatnot. And I want to know what's going on. I don't know. All I know is that anonymous information came, but I don't know anything more than that. And I know what they're saying, but it's just not registering. I just can't believe that they're going to uproot my life. I want to know what they got, and they're not giving me no answers. They got to have something more. It can't just be someone drops a kite and I'm gone. I'm in the hole. They got to have something, and there was nothing. So I have to think in my head, what would David the facilitator do? Because I can tell you, David the knucklehead, David the Calapalo, he's going to start raising hell. David the Calapalo is going to be the worst resident in ADSEG that they had ever seen. David the Calapalo is about to flood, cause problems, but this is David the facilitator. I have to think about that guided transforming power that I had mentioned earlier. This is an injustice. Work towards new ways of overcoming this injustice. So that's playing in my head. Okay, so I'm trying to just be level-headed. I'm trying to ask, questions. So they take me to my cell. The first day back in ADSEG was the worst, man. It was, my wife didn't know that I had been taking, because we had issues with the phone at that time. So it wasn't uncommon for me to not call, for a few days. So I'm sitting there and I'm in this orientation cell and it's freezing. I got none of my property. I got a white jumpsuit and I'm just freezing in there. Like, I don't know, they had it at like 60 degrees and I'm even colder probably because of just the emotion that I was going through. So this cell, these are called Z units. I had been in administrative segregation units before. I had been in the hole up and down the state. I've been in the SHU, been in Palm Hall. But this Z unit, it was something that I had never been in before. it's just like a super ad seg. You know, they have it. Everything is perfectly symmetrical. There's a bunch of tiers. There's orientation tiers, but something they gave us pencils. So every single person that goes into that orientation cell is so small. The beds are concrete. There's just a mattress in a. They gave me one extra jumpsuit, a mattress, a sheet, and there's nothing else but this pencil. You know, and I'm just staring at it. Oh, and I had a blank piece of paper, and then they gave me a little packet that just said "Welcome to AdSeg," and it's just like an orientation packet into AdSeg, and there's all kinds of word searches and Sudokus, and I'm just looking at it like I just cannot believe that this is happening. I cannot believe I'm in the hole. Like, what the hell?
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So I'm looking at the walls, and the walls are just covered with writing. You know, this is insanity. Every single place on the wall was written on. There's gangs everywhere. There's little messages. Some people are writing paragraphs on there.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
There's messages to God, and it was just insanity on these freaking walls. James, call back.
Most definitely.
Yeah, call back right now.
All right. So it's a little break time. You know what? I've been thinking about it. I'm thinking about putting like getting some little music or whatnot, so it's not quiet while during these small breaks in between the calls getting disconnected and these gentlemen calling back. So I'm gonna have to look for some music that's not that wouldn't be copyrighted, and then I could go ahead and start adding that in between the phone calls. So as soon as I get a moment, I'll go ahead and take care of that. It's just kind of crazy, with daily, normal daily life, my activities and whatnot. There we go.
This call is now being
This
recorded.
is Global Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from
David Lopez.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Hello, David. Before you
Yeah.
continue, I have a message that Elias Man wants me to read off to you. So he says, tell David we send our regards. Let me see. To all the guys that are rehabilitating themselves. I think eventually they will be an asset to their or asset to their community.
I believe so too, and thank you. And I will do that. And I have spoke about Elias Man in here, and I've talked about how supportive that he's been, and I've mentioned it to a few of the guys. So I'll just reiterate that to the fellas. Thank you.
All right, and then we also got another comment from Fish Slayer SoCal. He agrees with Iceman. He puts facts, Iceman. This is why I try to help and why I hire guys that just got released. I currently have 18 workers that I hired that are in a reentry program here in SD.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, man. Yeah, I think Mao Celli, the one that paroled, he went through a entry program in San Diego too. Yeah, that's cool, man. And much respect to him, man. What they do matters. Everything
Definitely
that they do matters. I appreciate that.
I think just in everything, like this whole, like it's coming full circle where I set up this platform, so you guys could, have your voice and share your stories, and then you guys, sharing your stories from behind there, and then the audience, listening and it's and spreading the message. So, all of this, goes hand in hand, and we're all each doing a part, to get this message out.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, and that's you're exactly right, man.
And then I have one more comment here from Stay Blessed, and they put saludos to everyone on here. CDCR is a big joke. Corruption is real. Hope the best for you, and I wish you well in your journey. Stay blessed. If you believe you will receive, my brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
And then Fish Slayer put I probably hired his homie.
He probably did, man. He probably did. He's doing real good out there. Yeah, I'm real proud of him, man. He's talking the talk and he's walking the walk, man. I'm real proud of him. I stay in contact with him to this day. Good guy.
All right, so the mic's
Yeah,
all yours
so
now.
no, that's good, man. So yeah, I bet you guys, are probably surprised, like, oh crap, he's in the hole, and yeah, I was, and that was a serious thing, man. They're saying that, I could have been a potential threat against staff. I'm thinking, man, I've worked hand in hand with these guys to try to get this yard, as far as programs are concerned. Like these are people that I have a good rapport with, so they know it's BS, but they're saying that they have to investigate this, and I don't understand that because I'm thinking, well, why didn't you just? They have something called a threat assessment. I'm thinking, well, why didn't you just do a threat assessment? Why didn't you just go search my cell? Why didn't you? Why didn't you just have a conversation with me? What do you have? Because it has to be more than anonymous information because that gives people too much power. I said, who got my education job? Who got my coordinator job? Who got my seat in college? Because that seat in college is a hard seat to get, man. I had to wait years to get that seat. So I want to know who wanted me out of the way so that they can get one of these positions, because there has to be more to this, and I need more information. This is my life here. I was taking 5 classes, 5 calls.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And I had to drop these classes, and that was a devastating thing right there, because a lot of them were classes that I needed to transfer to the university, and I had worked hard. I'm a straight A student. I have a 4.0 in 2 colleges. I worked very hard for that. So I want answers why I'm going to have to drop these classes and I'm going to have withdrawals on my college transcript, and they're not giving me no answers. They say, well, we don't have answers for you. We have to do an investigation. And that's unacceptable, but I still have to be level-headed. I have to think, what would David the facilitator do? David the facilitator is gonna make healthy decisions even in a situation like this. So I was just sitting there, and I was just trying to send a mental message to my wife, like help, like, with a couple exclamation marks on there, like I need some help here. I need to figure out what's going on. And I'm just looking at this welcome to ADSEG packet, like, man, this isn't like welcome to a country club, welcome to a self-help group. This is information that they're providing me so that I don't freaking do something to hurt myself. That's what the Sudokus are for. That's what there's word searches and stuff. And I'm like, man, this is children's stuff, man. I want answers why I'm in the hole, why I have to drop 5 classes, why you just took me off the yard in handcuffs after everything that I built here as far as rehabilitation and recovery. And you took the chapel clerk. I want to know why the hell you took him. He's in we were separated at that time. He was in another part of the tier, and he was going through it, man. I try to be. He would walk by the cell, and I would try to like, give him encouragement, and I would give him a thumbs up. And it was funny because I was sending him mixed messages. He's walking by, and he's looking at me, and I'm standing at the door in my white jumpsuit with a thumbs up, and he's thinking, oh, cool, we're getting kicked out. We're going back to the yard. And I'm giving him, in my head, I'm thinking, well, oh, man, we're fucked. I'm shooting him a thumbs up like, man, this is, they fucked us good, man. So we had mixed messages, This poor guy was walking by thinking that I had been released from ADSEG and that they held him back there. We ended up talking about that later. He became my cellie later. You guys are going to meet him because I think he's doing an interview with you too, James. His name is Alfonso. Yeah, he's a good guy, man. So I ended up going to just sitting there, and then, what's different about ADSEG now is they came and bought me my TV. So that was new for me. So that night they came and bought me my TV, and they bought me a little earbud, and they put the TV. I'm telling you, it's a small cell. There's a sink, there's a toilet, and there's nothing else. There's no shelf for a TV. So when they handed it to me, and I put the plug, there's like a little hole where you put the plug in, and they plug it in themselves through the chase. And now I'm holding my TV, and I'm thinking, damn, where am I going to put this TV at? So I had to balance it on the sink. And then I'm thinking, well, I only have a little earbud. It's like one of those little earbuds, and it's only 3 feet. So when I watch my TV and I listen to it, I'm gonna have to sit on the toilet basically, and if I'm gonna listen to the TV. So I started thinking in my head, you know what to do, man. Regardless of anything, you've been in the hole half your freaking life. You're gonna have to learn to improvise. So I did. So I tore out a piece of paper from my little booklet. I made a cone. I rigged it onto the earphone, and boom, I got a little bit of a speaker. I could hear it, And I just had to be I just had to improvise no matter what. If I used the sink, I had to make sure that I didn't knock over my TV. I had to find a place to sit comfortable because I was stressed out, man. I'm sitting there. I got nothing but this TV and this damn booklet with the word searches and the Sudokus, and that's just getting old real fast. So I had to start thinking, I had to think, okay, well, what happened? And then the defective thinking starts to come in. Who did this? Faces started to flash through my mind. I started to obsess a little bit. And I stayed in the orientation cell for 72 hours, I think. I stood in those orientation cells by myself, solitary confinement. Then they moved me over to another tier with guys who had been in ADSEG for a lot longer. And that's where I had to go into the back to the dog kennels. They had the little cages. So I'm there, and the tier that they had put me on was predominantly general population. That's where they had all the actives at. So I haven't been GP in a long time. So I'm listening to them. They're all around me. They're all in the cells around me, and I have one that's my neighbor, and I'm just thinking, damn, this is one of those situations where if they accidentally open our doors together, then it's going to be all bad, Sometimes things happen like that in the control booths where they'll open two doors on accident, and, it's what it is. So I'm a little nervous about that, but I was listening to the conversation that the dudes were having right there, and they're coming off of the mainline yards, and a part of me started to miss it. I was laying there and I was just listening to these conversations, and I was like, damn, all the doubts started to come through my head. You should have never came to SMY. This is the shit that happens on SMY. You were stronger than this, and you show weakness, and this is why you're in a situation like this. And I'm telling you, man, self-doubt is really bad, man. It comes up on you, creeps up on you when you least expect it. And I heard that, they were talking about, I could tell that they had some dope, they had some drugs, and just the way that they were doing things and the fishing and stuff like that, sliding the lines back and forth. I've mentioned that to the listeners before about how they use fishing lines to pass stuff back and forth, and it's going by my cell, and I'm respectful to everybody, though. I'm not gonna. There's guys that would steal the stuff off the line and stuff like that, but I'm not one of those people. I show everybody respect. So I just stayed quiet, stayed to myself, just hung back. There was a place to put my TV in the new cell. They put me in a handicap cell, which was cool because it was like a wheelchair accessible cell, which means that it was bigger. As soon as somebody came in with a wheelchair, they would have had to move me, but I liked it. It was a little bit bigger. There was just more room for me to pace, because that's pretty much what I did. I just paced, and then I just started my workout routine. Since I know how to do ADSEG time, I know the formula. So I started to bust down, started to get a workout routine going. I started to get myself in a routine of just keeping my mind and my body strong. So one thing that they had there, they do a lot of yard now in the hole. So I guess you got to be out for 4 hours, 3 or 4 times a week. So I went out to the cages. I regretted it as soon as I went out there. They put me in, there's 7, 8 cages out there in a row. So they put my neighbors who were, they were super high-powered gang members. They put them in the 1 cage. I'm in the 2 cage. And then the rest of the cages are all GPs, they're all active. And I had talked about the militant workouts and stuff before. So they started doing all this workout around me. They started to, they're in their program. And I'm just basically sitting there like a fish out of water, I'm uncomfortable, I'm by myself. I got no one to talk to, and right there, next to ADSEG, I could see the family visiting units. And I had a family visit, a conjugal visit. I had one scheduled for probably 2 weeks after that. So I was hoping to get released from ADSEG, and when I found out that I wasn't, I was just sitting there staring at the family visit unit like, damn, I can't believe I'm on this side of that fence. I'm looking, I should have been looking at the ADSEG unit. I should have been looking at the ADSEG unit from the family visit unit, but instead it's vice versa. I had showed my wife those cages from the family visiting unit. So yeah, it was all bad, man. And after 2-3 yards, I just went out there. I was like, yeah, whatever they do, I'm just gonna mind my own business. I'm gonna be respectful of their workout. But I said that about maybe 2 or 3 yards later, one of my neighbors hits me up, and he asked me if I was involved with an SNY gang, and I told him I'm not. That I used to be, but I'm not. And so we started to chop it up a little bit before his homeboys got out there, and he turned out to be a pretty cool dude. You know, he was heavily involved in his organization, and then eventually we started talking a little bit more when his homies were out there, and then his homies started to talk to me. And about a week or two later, we're all best friends. We're all talking, you know, nonstop. They're giving me my respect. And I had moved in the guy, the chapel clerk that went back there too. They ended up moving him in there with me, so at least I have somebody to talk to. So we did our workouts out there. They did their workouts out there, and I had some good talks with them. It's not every day that you get to talk across those lines like that. You know, I'm on this side, they're on that side. You know, I know what that is, but they don't know what it is over here. So they're asking me questions about over here. You know, and I'm just giving them honest answers. And they offered me something. They offered me something that was they offered me drugs. And I tripped out on that because they were basically like giving me that respect because I didn't snatch the stuff off of the line as it passed by my door. And I knew what it was, you know, so that's what I would have done too. I would have offered it to an SOY dude to make sure that he didn't steal my shit. So I knew what it was, and they were surprised when I told them no. I said, I don't mess around. And they're like, well, what about your celly? I said, he don't mess around either. So it was almost like I had spoke Chinese out there. They didn't even know what that was. So they're asking me questions. They're like, so you don't even smoke weed? I said, no, I don't smoke weed. They're like, you don't, what about drinking? I said, no, I don't drink. And one of them's like, you don't even make it to sell it? I told them I don't. I said, we don't sell alcohol. We don't make it.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
They're like, well, why are you in the hole? You know, like usually the knucklehead.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Call back, James?
No doubt.
All right.
Man, so that's a trip right there, you know, that they were blown away by him not, you know, accepting, you know, that I guess you would call it a small token of appreciation that he didn't cut the line, and he was letting them do their dealings and whatnot. But yeah, it you know, from what he's saying, he's really, you know, changed his life around, and he doesn't partake in any of those in any of those activities anymore. And I guess he's just, you know, and I would be in the same situation too. I'll be trying to come home too. You know, I'll be doing everything in my power, you know, to walk the walk and stay on the straight and narrow. I mean, my freedom would be priority number one.
This call
David.
All right, James?
All
Yep.
right.
Yes,
So
sir.
before you continue, we got a message here from Randy, so I want to go
Yep.
ahead and definitely read it off.
That was my crimey. He was right there with me. That was him.
Man, that was a
Yep.
crazy one there, man.
Yep.
I don't know how you managed, you know, to get yourself in all this trouble, man. But yeah, that Mexico one, that was, you're really pushing the limit on that one.
Hey. Yeah. I managed to get myself into a lot of trouble. Yeah. Yeah. Randy was right there with me, man. You know, he was like, I don't know what you got yourself into, but I'm gonna be here with you. And yeah, we ended up in jail. Yep.
Man, yeah.
My boy right there. And you know what's crazy is that me and Randy, we had to sleep feet to head because in Mexico in the jails there, you don't have your own bed. You don't got your own bunk like that. It's just pretty much money buys you a bed. If you don't got money, you sleep on the floor, you sleep wherever you can. And so they pretty much seen that we were all right, we were doing good. So we had a bunk, but there's no mattress or nothing like that. So yeah, I had to my pillow was his foot. Yep. It's crazy, man.
And
Yep.
that's the way right now that you
Boy, right
say that
there.
right now. In El Salvador, that's how they got them right now. They got no mattress. They got bed frames, but they have no mattresses.
I heard. I read a whole thing about that prison over there. Yeah, they got them dudes. Man, they got them bad, man. Feel bad for those guys. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. So
it's all you.
we'll get back to. All right. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just. It was like riding a bike, just being back in the hole again, and we were trying to like my family, my wife, and my mom and um my Shelly's family. They were calling the warden, and they were just calling Sacramento, and they're calling everybody because they know it's BS. They know the type of people that we were, and this is insane. This is a we have a little bit more insight about why it had happened, but yeah, it was dirty, man. It was a dirty move. So during this time, though, we're just thinking, okay, well, we have to use this opportunity because Alfonso, my cellie in the hole at this time, he's a badass facilitator, man. He's somebody that I go to talk about strategy as far as running the programs and stuff like that. This is my ace deuce right here, so I'm lucky enough to have somebody that's strong in his recovery also. So we're thinking, okay, well, what is David and Alfonso going to do to make the best of this, but to make the biggest difference? Because no matter where we're at, we're still in the service of our community. This is our community. These guys that are in this cage right here, yes, they're in the hole. They're what they are. They're involved with these criminal elements, but they're still hurting. They're still in a situation in their life where they might need somebody like us to get them over the hump. Whatever they're dealing with. And it was also an opportunity for me because I don't just plan on helping people that are SMY. I don't see that line no more. I don't see myself as anything other than a mentor and a community leader. Just because they're over there and I'm over here, they're not my enemy. And I've told them that. I talked to them in the cage and I told them, look, if these doors, we all hear it, right? If the doors crack, you know what time it is. But when the doors are closed, we can mess with each other. We can talk. We can eat together. We can do whatever it is. But when it's an enemy next door, when the doors open in the war zones, we're gonna have to try to kill each other. And that's something that was accepted, in the system. That was the norm. But I don't have to participate in that anymore. That's not my get down. My get down is love. My get down is joy. My get down is peace. So I told him that. I says, look, if the magical doors open, like we all say in the system, you guys have an obligation to do what you got to do because that's what's aligned with your politics. My obligation is to make sure that I'm safe, but I don't have to do that through violence. I sure as hell ain't gonna run, but I can stick and move. I can make sure that I'm safe and it's minimal damage until the officers come and they end the situation. They gain control of the situation. But I told them I don't have to try to hurt you. Like I said, I'm a big dude. My neighbors, they're not my size. I'm fit. I've been doing the same workouts. I come from the same trenches that they come from. So I have the advantage in that situation because of my size and because of my build. But I also have a responsibility as a facilitator and a mentor. I'm not going to try to hurt them. I told them that, and they looked at me and they were like, it made perfect sense to them. And I said, you guys got to do what you got to do. That's your politics. I got to do what I got to do because my politics are different now.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So I was able to, one of them brought up self-help groups. So boom, I use that as an in. I happen to have some Gogi books. It's a program called Getting Out by Going In. I mentioned before I'm a certified community coach. When I ended up getting my property, I talked to the housing officer and I told him, hey, I got about 7 Gogi books. These are $75 books. These are books that were entrusted to me by that organization to distribute how I saw fit, and I thought this would be the best time as any. So I asked the property officer to shoot me all the Gogi books, and I passed them out to the general population guys, and they took them. And I gave them to one guy because there's always somebody that's in charge there. And I told him, look, man, give these to the people that you think will do them. I'm not telling you guys that you guys got to drop out. I'm not, we all know what it is. You're not going to really ever get into recovery unless you leave the gang behind. However that looks like to you it's up to you. So I didn't tell him that, hey, you can't find the peace that I found unless you leave the gang, even though I know the answer to that. That's not, I had to be careful how I approach that, because I don't want to alienate them, I don't want to isolate them, and I don't want to turn them away. So what I did was I just told them, look, this is a good program. You guys could do these programs, and you could find the peace that I found. And that was that. I left it at that. That's why there has to be strategy for people like that. That we have to be able to we have to try to veer them away from that ideology, because it's very dangerous, man. They're willing to kill and die for that organization, for whatever they're a part of. And that's, we all know how that ends, They don't have to die in prison, and I was letting them know that. Just because you're over there, you can do good. They're letting you program now, and you can do it, but you have to be straight across the board. They were so surprised that I didn't do drugs that I know that made an impact on them, because my back's against the wall, right? I'm in that thing. I'm in them cages just like them. But I still say no. Why? Because I know where that leads to. There's no hall pass. It don't work like that. Any type of drugs that I was going to do is going to put me right back in that state of mind, and I refuse to do that. That's not who I am today. So they had put me in for a 30-day review. They said in 30 days they're going to have the investigation. It's going to be over with. ISU, I got to give a shout out to that stands for the Investigative Services Unit. What I know about ISU in prison is that they're fair. If they got you, they're going to come for that ass. If they're fair across the board, they're gonna take down staff. They're gonna take down drug dealers. They're gonna take down gang members. That's what they do. That's their job. And my experiences with ISU in the past is that when they came for me, I had something coming. I knew why they were at the door. I wasn't surprised, but them dudes were always respectful. We all knew what it was. And so I didn't have any animosity towards these guys. I didn't have any animosity towards any staff. I was upset about why I was in a hole. I felt like it was an injustice, but I figured that I was going to be cleared, and I was. I was cleared in 16 days. My entire life was picked apart, and ISU does not play, man. They will pick apart your freaking life. They will go through your shit. They will go through your phone calls. They will investigate. And I was cleared in 16 days, and so was my cellie. We were cleared across the board. So now we're upset. Now we're pissed off because we don't know. We just can't understand why they were able to just remove us like that out of our program with everything that we were doing, especially that we're clear. We don't understand why we're still in the hole. They should have done a committee to remove us from the hole, but instead they made us wait the whole. We ended up staying back there for 54 days, and it only took them 16 days to clear us. Yeah, we were upset. But maybe it was for a reason. Maybe we were back there just to talk to those guys, and maybe we were back there to see what our recovery looked like. Familiarize yourself really fast with those things. So I ended up, sorry man, there was someone at my door. So we ended up going to committee, and they told us straight up, look, there was nothing there. We actually filed a 602, which is an appeal, because there were some procedural issues that they ignored when they put us in the hole. They jumped real fast to put us in the hole. So there was things that were ignored. So we won our 602 across the board. We were cleared by ISU, and they said basically because of no fault of my own, I was taken out of college, and my program was disrupted so much, they agreed to recommend a behavioral override to Centinela State Prison for both of us, me and my cellie. And they recommended that I go into college here, I get put back into college here, and I get put in the line for the bachelor's program. And then they praised all my self-help groups and all, everything that I've done, in recovery and whatnot. And I'm telling you, I was upset. We asked them, please don't put us back on the yard. Just leave us in the hole. We're okay right here. Leave us in the hole, pending transfer, and we don't even want to be in that situation, because at the end of the day, I was still in the back of my head thinking, who did this to us? who wanted us off this yard? What scandalous motherfucker wanted us out of the way so bad that they would destroy our lives like this? And that person was still on the yard. Whoever the hell that was, whoever was responsible for that, we don't want to even be around them. And they said that they didn't have any reason to keep us in ADSEG, and they had to release everybody from the hole. So bam, we're back on the yard again. So this is another way that my recovery was put in question, because I'm on this yard now, and I'm looking at people, man. My thoughts are, my wheels are turning. I'm thinking, every time I seen somebody come up to me, anybody kind of gave me a weird look, anybody that kind of stayed away from me, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this is the motherfucker that did it. And now I see the people who have my job. I see the guy who has my celly's job. I see the guy who was real quick to try to get one of our coordinator positions. I see the guys who, I just see these people. I see the guy who has my college seat because there's a waiting list. As soon as I got taken out of college, they went on the waiting list and they put a guy in. Well, conveniently, it was somebody that I suspected. So yeah, all these things were playing in my head, but I had to tell myself, violence not the answer. The little devil on my shoulder was telling me, you got to do what you got to do. You got to set an example. They already fucked your life up. You got to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But thank God I had my wife. She was giving me positive reinforcement. Thank God I had positive people on that yard still. I had people that I can go to. I had these facilitators. I had these mentors. I had people that I trusted, and they were there for me. So I ended up, just waiting patiently. They ended up keeping me in Alfonso Celis. We stayed on there. We stayed there for about maybe a little over a month and a half, and then I was transferred here to Centinela. That was a roller coaster what I went through over there, because I was starting to doubt everything. When I was in Centinela, when I was in Calipatria, I had heard that my cellie Jesse was here. I didn't believe it. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Jesse's story, my cellie Jesse Nala, and I just couldn't see him coming into SMY. He was too involved. He had a good dynamic going on over there. So when somebody
You have 60 seconds remaining.
that he was here, I just didn't believe it. I was like, well, if I see him, I see him. I doubt that he's there anyway, so I didn't really give it much thought.
Right now, before
James?
before you give me a call back, I just want to read off a message from Elias Man. He puts, David's attention to detail is very impressive. Has he ever thought about writing a book?
I have, and I'll get into it. When I call back right now.
Okay, all right, cool, perfect. We'll be waiting for you.
I'll call right back. Yep.
All right, so right now when he calls back, I'll go ahead and go down the messages that follow Iceman's message, and definitely didn't forget about you guys. Just I gotta wait when we take these breaks to read up these messages. So as soon as he calls back, I'm gonna go ahead and mention all these messages and comment and whatnot over to David. This is probably gonna be our last phone call. I do have another phone call pending at 6:30 with Carlos, but we're definitely going to be having David back for many more interviews.
This call is now being
This
recorded.
is Global Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from
David Lopez.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your
Okay, James.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have. It's been something that's been on my mind because these are. I'm a reader. I read a lot of books. I love reading. I love writing. So that's something that that I was actually thinking about doing because I was an editor. I was a articles and stuff like that. Anything that's positive and uplifting. And so I noticed that, hey, I have a knack for writing. And one of the college classes I took was an English class, which was college composition, and I like it, man. I took it very seriously. So yeah, I'm open for ideas, man. you know,
Thank,
yeah,
thank
thought
you for
about. I
that.
don't know how to go about something like that. Yeah, I'm definitely open for suggestions.
I'll check what I could find out on my end, and if I find something, I'll shoot it on over to you. I'm kind of
Yeah, I mean my
resourceful
stories.
when it comes to things like that. So
Yeah,
I'll check
my
what I could
story's
find.
out there, and yeah, when it comes to writing, um, I think there's more detail that I can get into rather than just speaking because, I'm going off of my memories, but these are my memories, and I have like everything that I've talked about. I have documentation that guides me. These are real incidents. These are real things that were used to put me away and stuff like that. So I have the documentations and the dates and everything that I go off of. And then the story, the dialogue. There's a lot more dialogue. Conversations that I have with people that I remember. And I try to keep things flowing along. But yeah, it's a good suggestion, man. I appreciate that.
All right, and
So
we have a few more comments on the chat, so I'm going to read them off.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The next one is going to be from
go
Fish
ahead.
Slayer SoCal. It's what would David tell his younger
Uh-huh.
self if he could rewind time?
I think that and I've had this. I've actually written a letter to my younger self, and I just think that it's okay. Everything that I had went through as a kid, and every doubt that I had in myself, and every my low self-esteem. That I had everything within me already to be a good person. I was intelligent. I had a lot of doubt about that if I was smart enough, for class and for math and stuff like that. And I just would want to tell my younger self that it's okay. Everything that I'm feeling and everything that I was going through at the time, that I wasn't alone. There was people that I could have talked to. I didn't I didn't I didn't have to find value in gangs. I had a family that loved me. Um, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to be in pain. It's a those are emotions, but I didn't have to go down the road that I went down. Yeah, it's a lot, man. I could probably write a whole book on that.
Man, isn't be many you're gonna have some series, not just one. It doesn't have to be many to cover all the other different aspects of your
Absolutely.
life.
Yeah, there was always an off ramp. Nothing was final. Going into the system as a juvenile, um, it was okay to find friendships like me and Randy. Me and Randy, we met, in juvenile hall. You know, there was friendships that, he's one of my best friends, and it was okay to be friends with Randy, but I didn't have to try to befriend everybody in the damn juvenile hall, including all the troublemakers. Um, I didn't have to try to be like them. I had everything within me to be a good, upstanding human being myself. But I always looked for what other people had, and I tried to mimic their behavior. But when I started to find myself, like me today. I have confidence in myself. I don't take my value from what other people tell me. I get my value from God. I get my value from my positive decisions and my ability to overcome adversity. I don't need outside praise. I like it, but I don't need it.
And you know what? Once you figured, once you figured things out like that, it makes uh, uh making moves and bettering yourself a lot easier. When you're not seeking the attention or have other people validate the things that you're doing.
Yeah, no, exactly. I have a lot of confidence in myself, and I didn't when I first got that time. There was a lot of things that went through my mind when I first got a life sentence, and there was a part of me that thought, man, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do this time. I wish that I could just die right now. But I wasn't gonna like hurt myself or nothing. But those thoughts crossed my mind, like, man, like there's just nothing. You have no future. You're dead. You're just walking. You're a walking corpse. and I didn't think I was going to be able to go through with it. So I just poured myself into just more violence, more drugs, more chaos, and I didn't have to do all that.
All right, and
Yeah,
then so I have
what it
another
is,
message
man.
too. I have a message from Stay Blessed, and Stay Blessed puts, I was out for 10 years. I'm currently doing a year. I'm currently in MCRP. When I was in the main line, everyone was getting high and backstabbing each other. Keep your head up and stay strong.
Yep.
Stay strong for your loved ones.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I appreciate that encouragement, and that ties me into like so when I got here to Centinela, I had never been to Centinela before. I had never been to Calipatria either, but Centinela, this was an entirely new environment for me. I haven't been here long. I've been here 4 months, so my story is still evolving here. But when I got onto this yard, I noticed that when I went into R&R, it looked the same holding cages. But when I walked onto this yard, there was something different about it, man. Just the the whole scenery and the way that it's set up is different. The first thing I noticed was that the track is paved. There's a nice blacktop paved track, and it's big, man. It's like it's it's big. When we run around that track, we run like 3.5 laps. It's supposed to be a mile, but we don't know for sure. But one thing I noticed too is that the fences were not there. Yes, there's a perimeter. There's barbed wire perimeter and all that stuff, surrounding the yard. But level 4 270, it's all chopped up. There's the yard is split down the middle. There's the handball wall in between building 2 and 3 in Calipatria in most 270s, 270 level 4. So there's a fence that goes down the middle of the yard, and that's got barbed wire on top of it. And then there's 2 fenced-in areas on each side, which was, they call it yard 1 and yard 2. So that's where the dip bars are at, the pull-up bars. Those are all fenced in also. So we call those the weight pile. So you have to go through another gate to get into the weight pile to work out and, do pull-ups and stuff like that. Then there's a gate that runs across. It's a huge fence with barbed wire. It runs across the whole front of the yard. So you can't just walk up to the program office. You can't walk up to the canteen window, education. They have to open up the gate to let you in. So there's fences everywhere. It's like one giant tangle of barbed wire, fencing. It's dirt field. There's no grass. The track is all jacked up. It's all chewed up. The handball court is terrible. We chew up our shoes. I would go through a pair of shoes probably in like 2 weeks max right there, tear a hole right through my shoes because the ground is so jacked up. Everything is like just the paint is peeled off the walls. It just looked ugly. But when I walked into Centinela, this is the first time, man, in years that I saw like huge green grass. The field it was beautiful, man. It almost took my breath.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It was late at night, and I didn't know how much I missed grass. I just wanted to look at it, just the way that it was like a park. That's how big it is. The handball wall was nice, and I mean the gravel's messed up on the handball wall, but it just looked nice. It looked like it was paved over, like they actually tried to fix it. But the way the track looked, the fact that there's no fencing in between the buildings, there's murals on the yard. It's a badass mural, man, of Statue of Liberty and Mount Rushmore. There's a jet flying off, and it just looks. Just the ambience of the yard is way different, man. It just seemed calmer and more open, and the program is more open. This is kind of a restrictive level 3. I haven't been level 3 since Soledad. So that's a long time ago, 2005. I was on the level 4 yards all the way since then. It's almost been 20 years on level 4 yards. So I was just blown away, man, by the way this yard looked. So I got put in building 2, and I was listening because I thought Jesse was here, but I was like, man, I just don't believe it, So I started to put my feelers out a little bit. I started to ask a couple questions, and sure enough, man, this fool was here. So I sent word over to him, let him know that I was here, and he was so surprised and so happy that I was here that he actually went right to the officers, and he didn't have a cellie. So he went to the officers and was just like, dude, get my boy out of that building. Bring him over here. I'll take a cellie right now. So I didn't know none of this was happening. Just the next day, he went into my building over there, and he was like, "Get your stuff together. You're moving." I was like, "What the fuck? I just got here. I got my own cell." He just, "Get your shit. We're gone. You're gone. You're going over with me." I'm like, all right, well, see a single cell. So I came over here with him. You know, and I'm able to. I was so surprised though because Jesse, he's on the path that I'm on. You know, when you see a homeboy in prison, you gotta. I mean, you don't know what they're on. Like I said, I talked to you about those fake dudes that were in Calipatria. They'll smile in your face and they'll come up and shoot up in their cell. But not Jesse. Jesse's living his life, man. He's living his life the way he's supposed to in good, orderly direction. I don't have to worry that there's a phone. I don't have to worry that there's drugs. I don't have to worry that he's gonna go and start shit with somebody and I'm gonna have to jump for him. Like, I don't have to call him my homeboy no more. Jesse's my friend. This is my brother right here, and I'm real happy that I get to be a part of this change with him. You know, he's at a self-help group right now. He's at Narcotics Anonymous. You know, this dude works hard. He's a clerk. He got me hooked up with a pretty good job. I got his old job in the law library, and I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Just living my life, man.
So in other words, just to go ahead and point out the obvious, that you know them telling on you or making up some stuff that you weren't doing, you know, ultimately, you know, got you to where you're at now, and you know, now you're with your friend Jesse, another positive role model.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, I'm sure those 56 days in that tech definitely sucked, but now where you're at now, you're probably gonna, you know, thrive, make better moves where you're currently at.
Yeah, I'm already back in college. I'm already back in the programs, and you know, and I because there was people that were asking me like, well, who told on you? And I said, well, look, this is the thing. Nobody told on me. Somebody provided fake, false information, and didn't even have the courage to put their name on the kite. It was anonymous. Somebody just dropped an anonymous kite. You know, it was suspect, man. It was suspect how it even got to ISU's mailbox. You know, it was suspect. I believe a staff member went and brought it there, to be honest with you. But that's a whole nother trip, you know. I try to just leave that alone. But yeah, there's a lot of corruption in prison. There's a lot of things that we were speaking out against over there in Calipatria. I call bullshit when I see bullshit, you know. And I've seen some bullshit, man, and you know, so that I believe that you know, there was more to that, but you know, it's in the past. But I think like when people say that, well, who told on you and stuff like that? Well, fuck, I mean, there had to be something to tell on. You know, this was just random anonymous information that they put, and they put what they had to put. Any threat against staff, your ass is gone. Even if it's a suspected threat, you're going in the hole. And they knew to put that to get me off the yard. They didn't think I was going to be back because, like I said, ISU is fair. They told me straight up, if we had anything on you, your ass would be gone. We're going to book you. You'd have a write-up right now, but we have nothing on you guys. This isn't who you are. So they released us. But yeah, it was devastating to think about, you know, and I still struggle a little bit, you know, thinking about how bad that it could have been, you know. What if I would have gotten written up? What if they would
You have 60 seconds remaining.
taken it to another level?
Before it cuts
Yeah,
off. So right now at 6:30, I actually have a call with Carlos. But if you could call me back for a few more minutes, because I want to get through these messages. I don't wanna you know, not read off any of these messages.
No, that's good.
And we still got like about another 30 seconds. I'm looking at the clock right here. So I have one from oh, hold on. You know what? Just call me back. I'm gonna get this call from Carlos right now, and then I'll let him know to call me back in 5 minutes, so we could finish up.
That's cool.
Okay. All right.
All right.
All right.
This is Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from
Contreras.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
This call
You
is
have a
now being
prepaid
recorded.
call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hey, Carlos.
Hey, what's up? How
Hey,
you doing, Jay?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, would you mind calling me back like in 10 minutes? I'm finishing up an interview with David right now.
Got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, bye.
All right.
This call is now
This
being
is
recorded.
Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from
David Lopez.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and read up the next message. So I have one from Fish Slayer SoCal. He puts
Should buy it. Yep.
and then we have another message from Randy Ruiz, and this was a little while ago. So he puts, my mom said hello. She said she loves you, bro.
Yep. That's his mama, man. Yeah. I love them both, man. That's cool. Yeah,
And
his
then
mom's an OG, man.
Man.
Always been there for us.
always a great support, when you have family and friends, tapping in it, showing support.
Absolutely.
And then
Thank you, man.
you're welcome. The next
Go ahead.
message I have is from Elias Man. He says it's mostly all downhill from here, Fish. Just one day at a time. 30 years drug free, 20 years alcohol free. It's easy now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and man, give him his respects, man. But yeah, it's easy. I don't have those urges like I used to or nothing like that. I don't even have thoughts about it. And like I said, I'm going through the phase where I'm still in the embarrassment phase where I think about all just everything that I freaking did and other people that I harmed and stuff when I was living that lifestyle. But I'm going through I'm making embarrassment and guilt. But now I'm just entering to stuff.
And then Randy just put another a message right now. He said, "Tell Jesse I said what's up. Miss both of you guys."
Yeah, he knows him real well too, and I'll relay the message to him.
And then Elias,
when you talk to Carlos, go ahead.
He said, and then Elias Man put James like an old school phone operator, like with all the calls and
you
stuff.
You are, James. You are.
I'm plugging in cables over here.
Office, operator. Yep, that's what you're doing, man. You're a switchboard. That's cool.
Man, I'm like that lady in John Wick, the one that's connecting other calls.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, so when you talk to Carlos, if you can, just relate to him, man. I'm real proud of him, man. I'm real happy that he's doing this and he's sharing his story, and I'm proud to call him my friend, and you could tell him that my first and last name, so he'll know.
I'll definitely let him know.
Yeah, Carlos, I ran him. Yeah, I put him through some shit, man. I remember when he was around me, I was a lot different, I was fighting nonstop and just always on some bullshit, so.
Yeah.
He's someone I had to make amends to as my boy, for making that real uncomfortable for him. And then I'm trying to encourage him to really, really get into his story, man, about what it was like up there, because he told me and I was mind blown. But yeah, so we'll coordinate again, James, sometime. Maybe me and Jess can get on now.
If you guys are available tomorrow or even maybe later on tonight, I'm not sure how early you guys go to sleep, but if not, then you could either do it tomorrow or Wednesday or whatever day you're available.
Well, he gets back from that program at 7:30. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be burned out.
Okay.
But maybe we can coordinate something tomorrow. I'll check with him right, and we'll give you a call and we'll try to situate that. All right.
Okay.
And I just want to give everybody a shout out, man. All the listeners, man. Thank you for hearing my story, man. And anything I could do to help, man. I'm always here. Thank you, guys.
All right, perfect. I really appreciate you, and like you said, I appreciate the everybody listening in. I appreciate like the messages and the support that you guys are providing. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and end the stream for now. But I do have, like I said, we do have Carlos coming in the next few minutes, so definitely stay tuned. I'm gonna cut this stream, but I'll be starting up a new stream.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
All right, David. So
you
go ahead and have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, thank you. All right, and with that, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stream, but I'll be back shortly.